What's going on, everybody? It's your boy JRich, back for another episode of Across the Pod. Me and Tom are finally back after licking our wounds after what happened to Newcastle this past week, but we are focused on game week 26. I hope you guys are excited. Back-to-back double game weeks from Liverpool. Not so good if you had Slot as your assistant manager, which we did, but we are going to break down everything for you ahead of game week 26, including our transfers, the players we're going to be transferring in and out, because we do have a couple things to address. Tom, we have a mod still in the team, but how are you doing, my friend, and are you excited for a very quick turnaround from game week 25 to game week 26?
It's exciting to be back. I know the fans have missed us. Yeah, I think it's been an interesting week. I'm looking forward to this week as well. You mentioned Slot, but I actually went Moyes assistant manager, which I don't think it was even worth the stress of doing it and trying to be different for like the extra 5 points I gained or something ridiculous. But it's nice to see a beautiful face and being back. And yeah, let's kick into it. All
right, so let's get started. And as you mentioned, you did have Emery, and it just so happened to work out for you guys. I went with Slot myself. And obviously didn't get the triple captain as well. But heading into this week, Tom, what do you see that you're liking? What are some of the games we should be targeting for game week 26?
Yeah, it's quite an interesting week this week because there's not really that many exciting fixtures other than obviously City Liverpool, which from an FPL perspective has kind of typically been an avoid because it's, there's such like a tactical game. They tend to kind of be like 0-0, 1-1, and you kind of don't want to have six players from there. And I know I'm tripled up on Liverpool and probably looking to maybe offload one of them, especially with blank game week 29 coming up. We know Liverpool blank there, so I think if you're not free hitting, you have to kind of like try and plan your transfers now. And if you're looking to bring in anyone at all from these teams, you got to make sure that they don't blank a game week 29. And I guess we can cover that in a little bit more detail. But just looking at the fixtures this week, I guess the key ones that over expected 2 goals to certain teams is Arsenal. You'll see Nwaneri on the right hand side picked up an assist and I think 3 bonus as well. So I think he got 9 points for a 4.6 million pound player. It's just absolutely crazy. So like even if you just want to like fill in your final slot in midfield, 4.6 million, doesn't blank a game week 29, looks to be like crossing it into who Merino is playing striker for Arsenal at the minute. So and I guess the other flip side is maybe you want to just pick in Merino now. Ex-Newcastle, obviously. He's a bit of a baller, and he seemed like to do the job up front. And with Havertz out for the rest of the season, and Arsenal seemingly just like picking from Sterling, Trossard, and Nwaneri, and I can see Merino starting after the 2 goals in the last fixture. So Arsenal, I think, if you still have them in defence, like, amazing. Let's just keep the defenders in there. But Nwaneri or Merino, I quite like in the midfield. You'll see Brighton, Mitoma turned into prime Messi for that touch and finish. That was just unbelievable. And they've got Southampton, which is probably the best fixture you could have, home or away. They've been pretty dreadful. So after beating Chelsea 3-0, you'd imagine Brighton are looking to kind of kick on a little bit. The only thing from history having Mitoma is he's very like hot streaky and then like does nothing. So hopefully if you own him and you're looking to bring him in, he kind of continues with like, he tends to get scrappy assists or goals. And when he does, he tends to get the bonus points as well. But for me, I owned him earlier in the season. I got completely burnt by Mitoma, and I'm definitely not looking to bring him back in. He just kind of like one of those players that if you're watching the game and you have him in your team, he's so frustrating because he just like sits on the wing, kind of runs up and down, does not much. But, he has those moments of brilliance like this weekend. So if you want to gamble, go for it. We'll get into the goal scorers in a second, but I think Newcastle Forest is going to be quite a tough game both ways. And it feels weird to say that after the season that both have had, but just Forest just seems so good in defence. It's predicting Newcastle to win 1.9 to 1.18.
Seems crazy, right? After what we just saw this past week against City, it's just it feels like a team that's bursting at the seams. And the way Forest has played at times, even to have to go to Newcastle, it seems like they should be more favored in this contest.
Yeah, exactly. And I think with Chris Wood, who played for us, obviously, at Newcastle, played like 30 games, scored 1 goal in that time. And it's just, is he the leading top goal scorer at the minute? He's right up there.
He's top 3, probably.
Yeah,
him Holland, and
right up there.
Isak and Salah, yeah.
You can just see he's going to come back and score at St. James's Park. Like, I've already banked against it. I can just tell it's going to happen. Out of the other fixtures, not that many excite me, but maybe I'll pass to you and see if there's anything else which excites you from those other fixtures on the right-hand side.
I mean, I think there's a couple questions I have for you right off the bat. One, as a owner of Slot right now, how do you feel about not transferring him out and rolling him against City? Because we saw what happened against Real Madrid, and while Liverpool is not Real Madrid, especially up front, do you think there's a world where maybe Liverpool does bounce back a little bit after a couple of poor performances and really puts a crooked number on City, who are dealing with a lot of injuries in defense? And then depending on what happens with Erling Haaland, they also could be great from a defensive aspect as well. You're probably still going to start Trent, especially if you rolled Trent and Salah for the both double game weeks with Slot as assistant manager. It's something I've been toying on. I know a lot of people who have Slot are frustrated because he didn't get the bonus points, obviously, because they're top of the league, and everyone who rolled with the opposing manager got the extra points from the bonuses. But I am thinking about just rolling it again, like not wasting the transfer. Even for this team, we only have 2. If you don't have more than 2 transfers, it's not necessarily a move I want to make. I did want to ask you as well about Villa and Chelsea, because Chelsea have been horrendous, and especially coming off the double game week, do you think there's a chance that Villa can put up a big number on Chelsea as well, who've been very, very poor in the defense for the last couple of weeks?
Yeah, I think Slot's an interesting one because I think if you don't have loads of transfers, you kind of got to be planning to free hit 29, and if you end up there with not enough players or you're taking hits, then what was the point in making the assistant manager transfer now? So I think if you don't have many free transfers, I'd just stick with Slot. And equally, I'm potentially sticking with Emery, even though Villa don't get the table bonus against Chelsea, just with the way it's kind of the points they got
Worked
against
out,
Liverpool. It's kind of worked out, and obviously Chelsea losing to Brighton. So I think for me, I'm tempted to leave Emery in. I think for our team, we probably just leave Slot. I think Liverpool are probably favourites to beat City at this point, let's be honest. It could be a draw and City could potentially turn up, but we've been saying that, and it's game week 26, and we're still looking for that same City team to click and be as prolific as they have been, and it seems like every week they're still getting humbled. So I think for me, just keep the manager as it is. I do like, there's a few punty, maybe because we're talking about managers, we'll flick onto it. These are the projected manager points. So if you're going to play it this week, this is for the next 2 weeks. But for us, we're just interested in this column here for game week 26. And it looks like if we were going to switch across, we'd go to Arteta, Glasner.
Glasner's been the popular one, right? For a lot of people.
Yeah, I think most people are looking for that for the bonus points and against Fulham. And I think they will probably put up a good fight against Fulham and potentially win. So I do like that risk. The other one, which when I was just thinking about who am I going to switch from Emery, I really like Van Nistelrooy. I know Leicester have been dreadful, and if you go back, Brentford are predicted to beat them. But I just think Leicester, they're due a home win. They're going to turn up. Brentford haven't been as prolific as they have been. And the table bonus with a Leicester win would be absolutely huge points. And I just, from picking the safe options for assistant manager, and then you see last week some managers get 26 points for just a single game week, and you're like, why not just risk? If you fancy a team to do well, I quite like taking the risk.
Yeah, no, it sounds crazy, but especially with the way the Brentford's played on the road, they've been really, really poor. Even this week, people kind of expected a bigger number from them this week. It didn't really work out. Couple offside goals, a little bit unlucky, but if that's going to be the result, that's going to be the result. And I think that Leicester is definitely an option and could even be a differential, right? Because a lot of people are going to go with Glasner. A lot of people will stick with Slot. Maybe they go another direction because there has been Arteta, as you kind of mentioned, but Van Nistelrooy could be that slight differential that could get you a few extra points if everything else goes wrong. But I feel like the reason why I have Slot is because I expect a steady flow of points, and everyone keeps scoring more points, so it's very frustrating, but I do like the gamble for sure.
Yeah. I feel like you're talking me back into doing Van Nistelrooy, and I've just talked myself out of keeping Emery, so I don't really know what we're going to do. Let's talk a little bit about the projected goal scorers. What's your thoughts on those top few there? Let's don't even bother talking about João Pedro.
I mean, so Pedro obviously has a great matchup, right? But it could equally be Mitoma. It could be Minta if he starts. There's a lot of reasons why you could take a lot of players from Brighton. The question is that who's going to be the guy? Isak up top is surprising because they can barely get him the ball right now. So even against Forest, I'm not really sure how that's going to work out for them. Forest does have a strong defense. They've been playing very, very well. Haaland, again, if he starts. And then I have to ask you about Wisa because he's been a guy who people pegged a few game weeks ago. Obviously, it's been a little bit since we've done a pod, but he's been struggling, man. Like, he's on my team and he's 2 points a week and he just can't score. Like, would you continue to roll him again? The matchup's good against Leicester, but he just seemingly is not converting right now, both him and Mbeumo.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of the weeks where out of all of the projected goal scorers, the highest is 0.6, which is quite surprising. Normally we're seeing like Salah right up there, Haaland right up there. And I think it kind of like comes to a week of there's no one you kind of really want to bring in this week. So it's potential to not waste a transfer for the sake of it. It's not a week we want to target one specific player because no one's going to be like super explosive. I think this week, if you're going to make a change, you got to think about it longer term for like, do I want this player for 5-6 game weeks? And are they playing in 29? They're probably the two areas that I would look at. In terms of captaincy, it's a bit of a tough one this week. I've not even thought about it. I'm interested when we get to our team, how we kind of land. But maybe we have a flick to the most transferred in players and see if that's any different to the projected goal scorers.
Yeah, so here they are right now, and obviously Marmoush is number one, especially with Haaland not playing yesterday. There's some concerns as to whether or not he's going to be available. Kluivert, of course, Mitoma, Cunha, Nwaneri, who you mentioned as a guy who, whether you have him on the bench or you start him every week, it's really just a matter of when Saka comes back. Dango's is still there. I can't believe that he keeps scoring. It's very, very frustrating. But is there anybody that you see on here that you want to bring into your team? I believe Beto scored in 3 of the last 4 weeks when he started. He's been scoring a lot of goals for Everton. I actually don't mind him because their matchup is pretty good. Chris Wood, Wisa. Arsenal's defense is kind of the one that I can't figure out because I don't want to bring Gabriel back into the team. I just don't believe in them defensively to continue to play well. But they do have good fixtures coming up should you want to do that. But number one question for you is, would you bring in Marmoush to replace, a Mateta potentially? I believe he's still like 7-3. Would you bring him in for an Isak even this week as they have a couple tough fixtures, or anyone else, above that 7-5 range?
I think Marmoush, I really want to bring him in, and I feel like it's a little bit reactive, but he just seems quite prolific. And like, if he's going to be playing 70, 80 minutes for City, I quite like it. The only issue is I don't want to bring him in for Liverpool at home. It's not a bad week to bring him in potentially because Liverpool can't keep clean sheets, but I'm just semi-tempted to watch City another week, see how he does. And if he does like pops off, then just bring him straight in because he's definitely a player I'm targeting for 29. It's just a question of how you want to play your team for 29. And if you're looking to bring, I'll probably looking to bring Haaland back in if he's fit. So it's like, do you want Marmoush and Haaland? How are they going to play together? Are they going to play together? Are they going to split time? It's kind of one that I want to monitor, and I don't want to jump the gun a little bit too early. But then again, if you're a risk taker, then kind of why not? Beto is an interesting one because I was kind of 50-50 between him and Ndai for Everton, and I just can't believe I went with Ndai, who he got a last-minute goal but did nothing while Beto keeps scoring. And now Ndai's injured and out for weeks, and Beto's like still just the number 9 for Everton. So I think if you've got him, it's great to keep him. He's also got a fixture, West Ham at home in 29. I would keep him. Also not a bad option to bring him in now. I think he'll do well in those 4 games. And then
you got 4 games and then it's pretty brutal for them after that.
But I think most people are looking to kind of like get to 29, then maybe wildcard in 30 is what I'll be doing. Or if you're free hitting in 29, maybe it's just a completely different thing. So I don't mind Beto for a short-term one, but he doesn't like super excite me. It's like, oh my God, I can't wait to get him in my team. Equally, there's not many on that slide, on that page right there that I'm super excited about. I'd be looking at going down. Marmoush I like, Nwaneri I like. I'm glad we got Mateta in my team, but I wouldn't be rushing to get him in. Yeah. And that's kind of it. And it's kind of like the sentiment for this week is like, just save your transfers. Maybe do an assistant manager transfer if that's what's exciting you. But I think you just got to hold your transfers now until 29, unless there's a player which you know is playing in 29, you want to get him early.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. There's not a lot of players here that I see you need to bring in or you got to bring in. Marmoush is kind of the one if you want to gamble. I know a lot of people are on Cunha because he's got really good fixtures basically for the rest of the year. So he is a decent option as well. Like even beyond what you can see here, he has got some great fixtures ahead. So I don't hate him one bit. But let's get into the team quickly because we don't have much longer. I know you have to go, so I don't want to keep you. But what do you want to do with this team, Tom? Because as I mentioned, we have Slot as our assistant manager still. I like where we're at. We scored 104 points this week because the Digne to Watkins connection definitely paid off for us. Rodgers continues to underwhelm. They have Chelsea this week. I talked about how I think they could score some goals there. Rashford started against Liverpool as well. But Ahmad is kind of the clear guy we have to replace. And then is there anyone outside of there that you think we need to move on from? A lot of people moving on from Lewis Hall. I'm fine just kind of keeping him on the bench because you look at the fixtures for Newcastle. They do have that blank game week, but they're pretty solid. And I believe we have them at 4.3 mil. So I don't really want to give that up in the value we have in Hall. You know, we still like Munoz, still will start Trent, and we can kind of figure it out from there. What do you see with this team, and kind of what do you think we need to make as far as moves?
Yeah, I think the Newcastle ones, like Isak and Hall, we have so much value in, and they double in game week 32 now. So like them and Palace are the only two teams which double in, and we've got Mateta, Munoz, Hall, Isak. So like they're kind of players that we want in 32. So I'd almost be tempted for this team to like, why don't we hold them in a free hit in 29 while it's a blank game we get 11 players playing? Because otherwise it's kind of like at this point in time we've got maybe like 8 or 9 players who aren't playing. So we either need to plan accordingly to manage and navigate that blank game week in 29, or we play the free hit and just hold this team into 30 and onwards. How much budget do we have in this team?
So we still have 1.6 available. So we could upgrade slightly just about any spot, and we can make 2 transfers. So, I mean, we could probably go up even from just like replacing Diallo. We could go up to Kluivert if we wanted to. He's been very solid. They've got a great run of fixtures as well, so no real concerns on that front. The Wolves matchup this week is great. He's returned, it looks like, in, I mean, basically every matchup in his last 5 outside of the one against Liverpool, but no real surprise there. So he's kind of an easy guy we could bring in. We can't quite go much higher than that. We can go up to 6.9 million, it looks like. So let's filter this down.
Are we going to risk Marmoush? Do you want Marmoush in the team? Who would we drop? Watkins, maybe? Or do we want to probably drop Watkins? All 3 of our strikers don't play in 29, which is kind of rough for us. So we'd have to drop one of them.
Yeah. So I think, I mean, the way that Watkins is playing now, I actually don't mind it. And that's where, you know, the fixtures are okay for them. But he's been playing pretty well, surprisingly. I didn't expect him to play this well. But yeah, I'd think we'd probably be looking at a move like this to where you bring in a Marmoush potentially, because we do like him. And then it's who can we get from the 8-7. Wow, that's actually quite a bit in the midfield. So there's a lot of options for us there. Is there anyone that kind of sticks out to you in that price range that you'd want to potentially bring in?
It's a tough one, isn't it? There's no one like jumping out at me. I do still think out of those, who would I go for? Maybe I think Mbeumo is still just like a guy who can get you 10 points from nothing, and I like that.
Yeah.
Kluivert's a little bit more explosive, but I just don't see Kluivert. He has been so consistently good, but he's just a player that I just never really thought I really want to bring in. And Bournemouth are playing really, really well, but I'd rather have like a talismanic player like Mbeumo, who you know is going to be playing 90 minutes and on penalties. Even though is Kluivert on penalties now as well? Yeah, it's a tough one for me. There's no one like, and out of those two, they both play in 29. It's kind of like a toss up for me. I'd probably go for Mbeumo and then we'd be looking.
It's close, right? Because my head says Mbeumo like easily, but he's just the 2 blanks in back-to-back game weeks. Now his expected goals and assists were actually quite high. So he's still doing the things to score points. It just hasn't really converted for him just yet. But 4 blanks in his last 5 is definitely tough to swallow with the way that Kluivert is playing and the additional price. But I'm fine with bringing him in. I think the matchup is great. And people have even talked about captaining him this week with Salah having to play City. And then, of course, Cole Palmer being absolutely dreadful for the past 4 game weeks.
Yeah, I know. It's a tough one. Yeah, I think they're probably the 2 moves I would look to do this week. We can have a chat, though, offline about whether we want a free hit in 29 and then we can keep all of our transfers, or whether we just move towards, I don't know, like how many game weeks are left? 3 more? If 3 more transfers, can we get enough players out and field a half-decent team? I'm not too sure, but one for us to consider for sure.
Yeah, I think for this team, these are the moves I think that make the most sense. And this is where I'd be going if these are the players that I had, because again, like, we don't know when Saka's coming back. He's kind of the main one I want to get in the team once he's available. But outside of that, it's like, do you want to take Palmer out of the team because he's too expensive? He's not scoring enough points. That's a different discussion. And I think this is still a good building block in defense. Like, I still think you want to have Trent. He's been playing very well, whether he plays the whole game or not. And I still love Munoz for what he's done. We still have to kind of figure out Dubravka, though, because we still got him in the team, but at some point, we're definitely going to have to move off of him with how bad the matchups are for Newcastle. But Tom, I think that covers a lot of it. Who would be your top captain's picks, though? Because we kind of hit on a few of them. Do you want me to bring up the expected goal chart once again, and we can kind of discuss that quickly on the way out?
Let's do it. It's a tough one, isn't it? I think it's really hard to go against Salah.
Just gonna back him.
I think everyone's just backed him all season. He's been really good. Personally, in my team, I'm going to go for Isak because I'm a Newcastle fan. And I think there has to be a response to the 4-0, especially as we build towards the cup final. I think Newcastle are going to have to turn it around with the home atmosphere. Hopefully just play a lot better and have the comfort of being at St. James's Park. So I think Isak will probably score. I think Salah will probably get a penalty and score and get 10 points. So it's kind of like, do you want to risk against him? I think if you're high rank, just captain Salah and just don't take a risk. I think if you're chasing rank, maybe go for an Isak or someone else that you kind of want to be a differential. But there's not many differentials that really excite me this week other than Salah and Isak.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. And especially because he's going to have Gvardiol. If he was on the left side, then he'd have a much better matchup like we saw with Real Madrid. But and that's why part of me thinks maybe you just, if you're feeling really bold, a quick Diaz play as well could be big. But that's it for me. I think a lot of people are going to have Salah. You can go differential. Just stick with your heart. And if your heart says Isak, Tom, I will back it. But for this week, we'll figure it out. We'll figure it out offline. We'll tweet it out with what we decide for our transfers and for the final bit. But those are your top targets. That is to have you ready for game week 26. Anything on the way out, or are we good to go?
No, that was a nice little finish, a homage to Valentine's Day last week. So I appreciate that. Thanks everyone for watching.
Make sure you like and subscribe, and we'll see you next week. We're out. Peace.